Hey everybody, it's Bitcoin Simple, where we make talking about Bitcoin easy for you and mostly for me, because I have no idea what's going on. Today, I want to talk to you guys about 4 specific things. The first thing I want to talk about is Bitcoin Cash. The second is ICO craze. The third is millennials and Bitcoin, and that's not the right order. Yes. There's 4 things I want to talk to you about today. The first is Bitcoin Cash and what's going on with that and kind of my own interpretation of it and what's going on. The second is you have B2X and is it going to happen or not? Because some people are saying it is, it isn't. The third is one of the Ethereum developers kind of is talking about ICOs, so I think we got to take a look at that. And then the fourth is millennials and Bitcoin. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that I think we want to talk about today is just looking at the chart. You can see that Bitcoin Cash is one of the biggest, actually right now, the #1 coin over the last 24 hours in the top 100. So, Bitcoin Cash. As you can see right now, it's up 22% in the last little bit. Let's take a look at the chart. So here's the Bitcoin Cash chart. You can see over the last little bit, it's gone from $300, $400 up to $1,000. It's kind of dipped back down to $950 right now, but it's had an incredible, I guess, rise over the last little bit compared to Bitcoin especially, which has had a 7% drop. So what's going on? So I think there are a few possible explanations for this. So the first possible explanation is that the Bitcoin 2X people and the Bitcoin Classic people are all moving into there. So these people who are really trying to promote the bigger block size and trying to get on the main Bitcoin chain are all kind of shifting their attention and shifting their assets into there. That's, I guess, a simple explanation, and you may think that wouldn't create that kind of rise. But when you think about the 85% of the miners were signaling for Bitcoin 2X, and also that big companies like Coinbase and Antmain were a part of that group, kind of seems a little more likely, right? Also, I think there's a lot of fanboying. All the people on Twitter who are over Bitcoin Cash are crazy right now. They're saying it's going to replace the Bitcoin. They think it's going to overtake it soon. It'll pass Ether and go all the way up. So it's just a lot of people who are building up to that point. We'll see. Another one is a use case explanation. This is just saying that Bitcoin Cash has a use that is better than Bitcoin in the sense that it has lower fees and way better transaction times. Now, some people are going to say, but Ether can do that and Ripple can do that too, so why is Bitcoin Cash a thing? Bitcoin Cash has a lot more security because it's going to stay proof of work for a long time, whereas Ethereum is going to move to proof of stake. And Ethereum, the leaders and the developers have said, this is not a currency. We don't want this to be a currency. We want it to be used for our smart contracts. Ripple, on the other hand, is very centralized, and if you go look at their Twitters and all over the place, that's exactly what the Bitcoin Cash people don't want. So I actually do believe that there is a real use case and there is real support for this. So I don't see it, I guess, collapsing. And the third explanation, I guess, is kind of the conspiracy theory, is that the big people like Jihan Wu and other people from inside the community and all the miners are taking all their Bitcoin Cash that they've mined over the last, since August, and are putting it towards manipulating the price. Now, do I think this is legit? Probably not. So if you look at Jihan Wu's Twitter, he says the Bitcoin Cash community needs to learn a hard lesson. Be friends with other competing coins, learn from them, and make Bitcoin Cash better. Don't play hatred, don't watch competing coins. Just try and make BCH better. It sounds like he's trying to get that community to kind of consolidate and not be so rowdy, because they really are, in some ways, bashing on Bitcoin and saying that it's really bad. So do I think the Bitcoin Cash is legitimate? Yeah, I actually think this rise in price is pretty legitimate. I don't think that people are back in the thing manipulating the price and whatnot. And if you look, it's Korean exchanges that have driven the volume up to this point. So to me, that doesn't look like it's, I guess, people who are manipulating and trying to play games. I actually think it's one, Koreans getting really excited, and the other thing, like I said, it's people moving their assets. So the second thing we need to talk about here is Bitcoin 2X. So obviously, you probably all know the fork was canceled a few days ago, but there's a small part of the people supporting it that actually are saying they're going to go ahead with it. And the funny thing is the futures right here are still trading. So even though the fork was formally canceled, people are still buying SegWit futures when it might not even end up existing. So there's still obviously some people who believe in it, but I don't know what they're doing. And my reason for this is anyone could technically fork the Bitcoin chain at any time. You, me, some little kid in, I don't know, China could fork it and make his own coin off of that, but it wouldn't have value. That's just how the system works. So the people who did promote Bitcoin 2X are saying they're going to come back and do it again later once they can build a consensus and stuff, but I think it'll be different than this, so we'll see. But in the end, for right now, I think SegWit 2X is a dead thing. The third little piece of news that I want to share with you guys, I think this is pretty interesting because a lot of people who are getting into crypto right now are thinking that ICOs are the way to get rich and the ICOs are the way to make money, which, sure, there are a few ICOs that I'm interested in that I'm looking at, but I think this is really good advice. So the Ethereum Co-founder, So not Vitalik, but the other guy, basically, who's really smart. He's a Princeton grad. He says, irrational exuberance in ICOs, but the tech is here to stay. So basically, he's thinking people are really wanting to get rich off ICOs, and they don't actually know what they're doing. And he's trying to encourage people to not be stupid on this. So he says right here, people tend to, or groups of people tend to, operate in fear and greed cycles, and I think we are going to see that. I think the growth in the ecosystem is going to continue quite dramatically. So, and this is like the internet boom back in the 90s. Basically, everyone just got excited. Everyone thought it was great, but it's not actually going to end up surviving. And Vitalik and other people who are really influential in Bitcoin have said 90, 99, a large percent of ICOs are going to fail. So be careful with your money. I have to talk a lot. There's too much Bitcoin news, guys. Lubin even described a situation where a person could launch an ICO for themselves. For example, a person could launch their own token to raise $5 million, which would put them through college and even help them start a business. Inventors could see a return once the business starts to flourish. That's really cool. I'm currently a college student, and I wish I had been able to put myself through college with an ICO and then pay the people back, basically, by showing that, I don't know, I'm getting good grades and stuff, and then go work. That's really cool. Have any of you ever seen an ICO being used like this? I think this is such an interesting idea. Do you guys have any other interesting ideas or, I guess, creative ways of looking at or using an ICO? ICOs are great, but in the end, be careful. Most of them are not going to be winners. So for the last part of the news today, I want to talk about this article. It's from 2 days ago, but I still think it's relevant because I think millennials really are the ones who are pushing Bitcoin in a lot of ways. You look at people who like Vitalik, who's the same age as me, super genius, but the same age as me, and other people who are really pushing this space. It's coming from people who are my age and just don't operate in the same way as people from older generations. We just think differently. So, and Bitcoin and this cryptocurrency thing really appeals to a lot of us. So if you come look down here, it says that 30% of millennials would rather own Bitcoin than stocks, which I think is really interesting. That's me. I'm actually planning on moving a lot of my stocks into cryptocurrencies now because I just think it's such a better asset and I'm so much more confident in it. So if you look at this, it says that 42% of millennials are at least somewhat interested. But it only means 42%. That means that half of the people who are first movers and are really getting to this space are even in it yet. And so we still have both half that age group to get to and the rest of the whole population. So if you come over and look at this infographic, it says, just I guess an overall average Bitcoin user, it says 90% are male, 55% are from the 19 to 34 millennial age group, 33% are from Gen X, and they're tech savvy. So I really think in terms of Bitcoin adoption, we have a long way to go. We're still early, and this is still a great time to be getting into this space. Do I think you should buy Bitcoin now? Not going to tell you that because I don't want to give financial advice. But I think, in general, this is a great time to be in this space.